the cerebellar syndromes. Is it clear? The cerebellar syndromes. And now we need to know that what cerebellar syndromes mnemonics is we have the TANSD mnemonics. Is it clear? And the cerebellar syndrome mnemonics. The first one is tremors, and this tremors is for intention tremors, meaning that it is only when the patient wants to move that he has tremors. Is it clear? Intention tremors. Then H is for hypotonia. Is it clear? Hypotonia means that the tone of the body is lost. Is cerebellar syndrome. Is it clear? You have hypotonia. Now the next one is A. A is asynergy. Asynergy means uncoordinated movement. Is it clear? A is asynergy, which is uncoordinated movement, still on motor. Is it clear? N is for nystagmus. Nystagmus means an oscillatory movement of the eye. The eye just oscillates, just like that. It can linearly oscillate, vertically oscillate, or rotationally oscillate. Is it clear? So that is nystagmus. Is it clear? Now the next D is dysdiadochokinesis. Dysdiadochokinesis or dyskinesia. Is it clear? It means that it is an abnormal movement of the limb. Is it clear? And then the last one is stance and gait. Is it clear? Stance and gait. Is it clear? That is going to also be involved in the assessment of cerebellar syndrome. Still in the motor, we have the extrapyramidal syndrome. Extrapyramidal syndrome. Is it clear? And in the extrapyramidal syndrome, the mnemonics is going to be trap. Is it clear? So T is the extrapyramidal syndrome involve the part called the basal ganglia. And in order for you to best understand the basal ganglia, now go on the tutorial on YouTube on Science Video Maker, still done by SchrDbb. So this T here is instead for resting tremors, as in contrary with the cerebellar syndrome where T is for intention tremors. This one is for resting tremors. R is for rigidity. Is it clear? A is for akinesia or bradykinesia, means that the movement has reduced. Akinesia or bradykinesia, movement has reduced. And P is for postural imbalance. Is it clear? Postural imbalance. So those are the different elements that you can have as motor deficit. Is it clear? Now the element that you can have as sensory deficit, is it clear? You have things like hemianesthesia. When you have hemianesthesia, hypoesthesia, you have dysesthesia. Dysesthesia, if they touch you and then you are feeling as if they are burning you, that is dysesthesia, an abnormal or completely different sensation. You can have also allodynia. And allodynia is when you have a small touch and then you are finding it painful. So a stimulus that is supposed to be non-painful become painful. That is allodynia. Then the next one in sensation, sensory again. You can have paresthesia, is tingling sensation at the level of limbs that you may have also. Is it clear? So all that's a focal neurologic deficit the patient may have. Is it clear? And then you have other manifestation of the patient with focal neurologic deficit. Is it clear? The others is anything that I did not say that you can think it is a focal neurologic deficit and involving the brain, because there are multiple focal neurologic deficit. Is it clear? Now you need to know that there's another syndrome that is also very important when you have focal neurologic deficit that I did not say. There's also what is called the pyramidal syndrome or the upper motor neuron syndrome. The pyramidal syndrome or the upper motor neuron syndrome. Now, the pyramidal syndrome is made up of 5 elements, or upper motor neuron syndrome made up of 5 elements. The first element in the pyramidal syndrome is going to be the Babinski sign. When you have a Babinski sign, it's going to be the first element in the pyramidal syndrome. The second element in the pyramidal syndrome after the Babinski sign, you have a hemiplegia. Is it clear? You have a patient who has hemiplegia or hemiparesis. I've forgotten to tell you that when you have paresis, it is an MRC classification of greater than or equals to 3/5. If you have an MRC classification of greater than or equals to 3/5, meaning that you have 3 or 4, it is paresis, but 5/5 is normal. Is it clear? Now the third element is going to be hypertonia. Generally, when you have a pyramidal syndrome, you have a hypertonia. The